We finally saw a relatively safe Week 4 in NFL Survivor, as all of the large favorites, except the New York Jets, prevailed. We'll get you ready for a challenging Week 5 in NFL Survivor, coming up next. Hello, everyone. I'm Eric Lee.
And I'm Michael Wiley, and we're the Fantasy Football Consultants. And Eric, the NFL just continues to be a little bit nuts, especially from a fantasy perspective. I'm sure it's just been crazy for a lot of folks out there. But it's starting to shape up a little bit for the Survivor League, don't you think?
Yeah, we say it at the beginning of the year that we want to be a little conservative in our picks early on until we start to get a clearer picture. I feel like we're starting to get that clearer picture. But if you can allow me to vent, for those that are just joining us, Michael and I made it easily through week 1 and 2 in this crazy Survivor, but we got tripped up by Tampa Bay, who lost to Denver. And it's so frustrating to lose in Survivor, and then the following week, watch Tampa Bay just play so well against Philadelphia, and Denver be so inept, at least offensively, against the New York Jets. But a crazy, crazy week.
Yeah, no, it's really kind of shaping up in a way that I think is interesting for our viewers. But before we talk a little bit about this next week, I got one plug for us. Hey, we really want to hear from you guys. Make sure you hit the like button. And share your thoughts. Don't just listen to us. Tell us what you are thinking. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe.
Yeah, Michael, we had in our first 3 videos, we maintained views of over 4,500, which is great. As people have gotten eliminated in Survivor, our views dropped last week to a little over 2,000. So we truly are asking those that are still watching us, please engage. Even if you've never done it before, put it in the comment section. This is the first time I posted, but here's some feelings you had about what we talked about in this show. Either disagreeing, we have no problem with that, or agreeing with us, or just giving a different take than maybe we thought of. We want to know who you are going with in your Survivor pool for week 5. And here are the 7 best options in our opinion. Notice the low spreads here. The only one that's more than a touchdown is the San Francisco 49ers, 7.5-point favorites at home against Arizona. Wow, we've got the Seattle Seahawks, 6-point favorites at home against the Giants. 1 point less is Kansas City at home over New Orleans. 1 point less than that is Chicago at home, 4 points over Carolina. The only road team in our top 7 is Green Bay, hits the road, 3.5-point favorites against the LA Rams, and 2 3-point favorites, the Washington Commanders over Cleveland and the Denver Broncos over Las Vegas. So let's talk about it. The 7 teams, Michael. I'll let you start. Is there a particular game, or unless you want to pass it to me, that you would eliminate that just is not going to be one that you'd like to consider?
Yeah, I think I'm going to take this Green Bay game off the board. It's the one game that's on the road. Obviously, Green Bay is really strong at home. They almost had a little bit of a comeback against the Vikings this last week, and it was good to have Jordan Love back. But he's still a little bit rusty. I actually would have liked to see them use Malik a little bit to balance things out. But Christian Watson's a little bit banged up. Yeah, the Rams are banged up, obviously, with their star receivers out. But just I guess with their strong running back in Kyron Williams, obviously Matthew Stafford, really capable, gave the Rams yet another chance after their great comeback against the Niners the week before. I feel a little bit uncomfortable. I'm not sure I'm a believer that the Packers are quite as good as this spread is going into LA. I think the Rams are definitely down right now. But this is the first game that I would take off the board. How do you feel?
Yeah, you know what I like is we finally have a little bit of a disagreement because I like this game more than you do. Now, I'll say one thing on in supporting of why you might want to fade Green Bay is the fact that the very next week they host Arizona. So, I get that. But man, I really think this Green Bay team is much better with Jordan Love at the helm. I just don't think much of this injured Ram team until they start getting. Now, I think if Cooper Kupp does make it back to this game, then I'm out. I'm not picking against them. But if once again that Nakua is definitely out, and if Kupp is out, I like this Ram. It's not just the offense. The Ram defense is really struggled. They are second worst in all of the NFL in total yards given up. So I think the Rams, the Green Bay Packers should feast on this Ram team. So I'm not, they're not my number one pick of this week, but they were kind of high up there. So
Okay.
let me tell you about some team that am not going to pick. And immediately I get it. They're a little bit intriguing. It's the new look Denver Broncos. They have won on the road against the New York Jets and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, two good teams who could very arguably be stated that are better than the Raiders. And now they're at home hosting the Raiders. But you know what changed my plans, Michael? You know what nixed my plans? Bo Nix. Let me tell you about his line last week when he won against the Jets. 12 for 25 for 60 yards. That's for the game. 60 yards. It feels like, I don't know why the Bucks couldn't do it, but it feels like you can really game plan against this guy that you know that so many of his passes are short, safe, and I feel like the Raiders this is not usually I want to talk about picking. Do you want to pick against Denver? I just can't pick. I can't pick for them, and I get it. Future value is nil for Denver. If you're ever going to pick Denver, it better be this week. But guess what? I'm not picking Denver in Survivor.
Well, I completely understand that with how the Raiders have looked against the Ravens and this last week against Cleveland at home. They look good and their defense looked good even with a couple of injuries. They didn't have Devontae Adams. They didn't have their strong defensive lineman either. And hopefully they'll both be back. There's a question about Devontae Adams, and I think that is a big deal. I was pretty surprised that the Browns didn't do a better job. But there's a similar situation. It was quarterback play, right, between the Cleveland Browns and what you're talking about with Bo Nix. So I completely agree with you, except for one thing, and maybe you could argue the same for both the Ravens and Cleveland, which is those are really strong defenses. And that is what you got going on right now with Denver. Their defense looks phenomenal. They really shut down the offense of the Jets, who seemed to be clicking before this last week. And so I'm with you. I'm a little bit afraid of this game. And I think there's a reason why it's one of the lower, or I guess the lowest of the spread games that we're talking about. And the Raiders have been pretty strong against Denver, even in Denver, the last couple of years. And so, maybe they've figured that out, or at least they had with the prior group. I feel like, the Raiders have shown that they're kind of a little bit of an up and down team. So I feel a little bit, I guess I don't feel nervous. I would definitely feel nervous picking the Raiders here. But I agree with you. Maybe this is the next one I would take off of the slate.
And I understand Denver's defense has been good, but how much of stopping the New York Jets they did last week was because of the weather? Do you think the weather had some of the factor in slowing down the Jets offense?
Yeah, no, absolutely so. And I was kind of disappointed. I mean, you saw Aaron Rodgers looking at his hand several times if you watched that game. But they should have been able to get the run game going. And they did not. And I could see Denver, really shutting down the Raiders' run. But the Raiders' run hasn't been their strength this year. It's been their defense that's been their strength. And so in going up against a weak offense, is probably what the Raiders need to win this game. So I'm with you on this one. Next game I'm going to take off the board is the Chicago Bears at home against the Carolina Panthers. Hey, this Carolina Panthers team is obviously, not great, but their offense is different with Andy Dalton at the helm. We picked them from a fantasy perspective for daily fantasy with both Chuba Hubbard and Deontay Johnson, and they didn't disappoint. And I think a big part of that is Andy Dalton. Yes, their defense is weak, but Chicago's offense, I'm not sure, can necessarily take advantage. They looked a lot better. They got their run game going this week. Caleb Williams started to feel a little bit opening up. But I just don't feel strongly that Chicago is clicking on all cylinders right now. And Carolina, I'm happy to bet against him. But I think this one's going to be close. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with what you said, where it's harder to pick against Carolina with Andy Dalton as the quarterback versus when Bryce Young was the quarterback. The future value of Chicago is not very large, so I get trying to pick them, but they do have a good Week 10 when they host New England, and in Week 10 it's one of the better games. So I might want to wait. And maybe when this Chicago offense, which seems to be getting better, their defense is great. With the offense is seeming to get better, they got Keenan Allen back last week. That hopefully by Week 10, Caleb Williams has a little bit more NFL experience under his belt, and that they're a tougher team. Just makes me nervous. I know a lot of people are going to pick Chicago and Survivor this week, and it makes me nervous. So the team I'm going to eliminate, and I will happily eliminate, is a team I picked last week. So I'm glad I don't even have to pick them. But even if I did pick them, I wouldn't pick them this week. I'm talking about the Kansas City Chiefs, 5-point favorites at home against New Orleans. Look, I get it. Kansas City is the defending champs. Kansas City is one of the few remaining undefeated teams. But in all 4 of their wins, Michael, they have not won by more than a touchdown. So it's not like they're dominating. And the injuries are starting to pile up. They've already lost Isaiah Pacheco, who is so important to that offense. And now they lost Rashee Rice, the wide receiver, who we've bragged about being definitely Mahomes' best target. So, and put all that together, the New Orleans Saints are not a team I ever want to pick against in NFL Survivor. Don't forget, they destroyed Carolina and Dallas earlier this year before outplaying Atlanta, but unfortunately losing, and then losing a close one to Philadelphia. So I'm out. I feel like the people on the Shark Tank. Michael, Kansas City, nope, I'm out. So you're left. Are you going to invest in them?
Yeah, well, so of the teams that we have left, San Francisco and Seattle have probably been picked by most folks, and so really that just leaves Washington or Kansas City, and I think watch really closely what's going on with Taysom Hill. I think if Taysom Hill is out this week, then New Orleans is a much more beatable team. He just changes the dynamic significantly for that team. So I feel pretty strongly that if he is in the game, I'm with you, Eric, with Rashee Rice out, Isaiah Pacheco out. This Kansas City team is, always a field goal and a referee away from losing a game. But it's in Kansas City, and the referees will be there. And Travis Kelce is finally getting involved, which I think is a big deal, and he'll get involved a lot more with Rashee Rice out. So I think Kansas City probably wins this game, especially if Taysom Hill is out. But if Taysom Hill's there, man, I tell you, I'm with you. I don't feel comfortable, and the other thing that hasn't been said is Kansas City still has a lot of future value. So I'm with you. Let's take them off the board. So, gosh, where does that leave us? That leaves us with 3 teams. And the Niners with all these injuries are a little bit, worth kind of looking at straight, but they're playing at home, and they're always pretty strong at home. Um, I think the next team I would take in Seattle, you know, they're coming off a mini, you know, they played last night and that was a tough game. And so, you know, will they have a little bit of a hangover going back at home to Seattle? I don't know. I don't think so. I think the next one I would take off the board, interestingly enough, is Washington, even though their offense is awesome. Jaden Daniels looks so impressive right now. And Cleveland looks atrocious with David Njoku still out. You know, I don't think they're going to have Nick Chubb back quite yet. So they're going to have to continue to rely on their. When are they going to get rid of Deshaun Watson? I tell you, what a maybe the worst signing
But what
of
do you
all.
do? I mean, you've got him to all this guaranteed contract. I feel like you have to play the guy.
You do, and you know he's got to go out and put his neck out there a little bit more, put himself in harm's way. He's such a physical guy, and I'm not sure why they're not running the ball with him more with his accuracy problems. Man, he missed. Well, actually, helped by a penalty. That there was a nice throw he made to Mari Cooper that turned into a long touchdown, and then that was pulled back. Um, I certainly don't want to bet against Washington right now, but their defense is bad enough to where if Cleveland can figure out a way to move the ball, and if they can get their defense back in, you know, they could keep this game close. And maybe Jaden Daniels magic at some point, he's not going to throw 80% completion ratio, completion, you know, the whole season long. So I'm a little bit nervous about this one. Although I'll tell you right now, if I were going to bet this game, I would certainly bet the money line and take advantage and be okay. I'm sorry, I would definitely take the points because I think Washington is going to win by more than 3 if they win this game.
So you give away the points. So you think Washington
Give away the
will
points.
cover?
Thanks. I'm not
Yeah,
a betting
okay.
man, you know, in terms of
All
that.
right. Well, Washington is the 3-1 team. Cleveland is 1-3. I'm just not sold on Washington. I'm not sold. The offense I'm sold on, but not their defense. And Cleveland still has a good defense. So Washington should win, but do I want to put my survivor life on them? The answer is no. So Washington will not be my survivor pick for week 5. It's not even my second or third survivor pick week. So let's bring it down. So I guess I'm supposed to eliminate someone. So it's between San Francisco and Seattle, and well, I can't believe that I have to eliminate my Seattle Seahawks, who are 6-point favorites at home against the New York Giants. Look, this offense is clicking, and we're seeing something that I said in previous shows, how much better this Seahawks team is with Ken Walker the third in the lineup because of his explosiveness. And Geno Smith has weapons to throw to. And you can see that when needed, I saw you, Michael, recently picked up Geno Smith, who was on the waiver wire. If the Seahawks are in a situation where they have to play catch up, they do not have a problem having Geno throw the ball all over the place, and he has the weapons to do so. You pointed it out, but we have an issue here of rest, right? Not only did Seattle play on Monday night, so they're on short rest, the Giants played on Thursday, so they basically are coming off a mini bye, which I think overrides the fact that they have to travel across the country to play this game in Seattle. I think it comes down to watching the injuries of the Seattle defense that just got torched by Detroit. Jared Goff didn't make a single incompletion, 18 for 18. They weren't putting a lot of pressure on him. Why is that? Well, their defensive line, Leonard Williams is out. Their number 1 draft pick, Byron Murphy, is out. Their safety, Love, got hurt in the game, and then their linebackers, Boye Mafe and Uchenna Nwosu, are out. Now, all of those folks were questionable, so it's a chance that they are going to be ready for this game. If I'm putting my survivor life on Seattle, and I know a lot of people have already picked Seattle, including both Michael and I, but if you have them available, before I put them, I would want some of these guys on defense to be playing. Otherwise, it's a little nervous. I'm a little nervous.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. I do. I think that despite some of the injuries in San Francisco, they've figured it out, right? They're getting a lot out of Jordan Mason. We'll talk about that game in just a second. Some of their other weapons are more available. And so I definitely prefer that game. But if Malik Neighbors is not out of concussion protocol, I feel like the New York Giants, that's exactly what Seattle needs right now. And with the 12th man in Seattle making it really tough for Daniel Jones, unless he's willing to run the ball like crazy, they may not, it actually might be a good Seattle defensive game after what was a really atrocious defensive game. And so that playing New York Giants is exactly what Seattle needs right now, even on especially on this short rest situation. So if Malik Neighbors doesn't play, I feel even stronger about Seattle's ability to win this game. Either way, I think Seattle should win this game. But I'm with you. I feel more comfortable about the Niners than I do about Seattle.
Yeah, that Neighbors point you made is a big one because they don't have anyone of his talent along the wide receiver core. So it is a real drop. Seattle doesn't have a ton of future value. So if you haven't picked them, I understand wanting to pick them this week. But as Michael said, and I have said, watch the injury news, the Seattle defense and the star wide receiver Neighbors. Okay, let's talk about the San Francisco 49ers. I'll let you go for it.
Yeah, so we hinted at it a little bit. Obviously, McCaffrey continues to be out. I think he may be out a little bit longer for you, fantasy owners. Sorry to hear about that for you all. I'm guessing anyone who picked first in the league picked him. But they haven't seemed to need him. Jordan Mason has been phenomenal running the ball, and they're kind of bouncing things around, distributing the things in the pass. Kittle's questionable right now, but Debo seems to be back. And their defense is, it's not 100%, but they have most of what they need in place. Still really surprised that the Rams lost a couple of weeks ago, and obviously they lost earlier to the Vikings as well. So 2 bad losses in a row, and then they come out and they kind of take care of business this last week. I think they'll do that again here at home. Arizona is a little bit scary with Kyrie, with Kyrie.
Kyler Murray?
Kyler Murray. I don't want to say Kyrie. With Kyler Murray's ability to stretch things. But they've had injuries themselves, and including on the defensive side of the ball. And so when they're not at 100%, I don't care if Kyler Murray's there. I think they're very beatable. They've given the Niners a few games here and there, but I don't see it happening this week.
Well, look, this is my pick for the week, because if you followed along on my picks with Sapoon, you have a mulligan in your league. I picked Kansas City last week. I'm picking San Francisco this week. Now, I'm someone who's always liked Arizona. I always say, hey, give Arizona respect. With Kyler Murray, they're pretty good. They're nowhere near the class of the 49ers, especially as they start to get a little healthy. Getting Debo back for sure is huge. He actually played last week. So, I feel very confident about the San Francisco 49ers this week, far more than anyone else, including the Seattle Seahawks. Probably the biggest argument against the 49ers that someone might say is, hey, they have a lot of future value. I even have been to some websites and they show me that they have a lot of future value. Michael, I don't do this very much, but I want to debunk this. I'm going to share my screen. All right. On my screen now is the San Francisco 49ers schedule. Okay. I'm going to tell you, they don't have a lot of future value. This is the game that picked them. Home at Arizona, not at Seattle, not against Kansas City, not at Dallas, not going across the country to play Tampa Bay. Seattle again, even though they're at home, playing at Green Bay when the weather starts getting worse in late November, at Buffalo when the weather again getting worse in December. Now you're waiting all the way to week 14 to a Chicago team that very well may be a lot better by then. Then week 15 is LA, when they should have both of their wide receivers back and a lot healthier, and a team that already beat them. Miami might have Tua back in December. Detroit, and then Arizona. You're like, oh, Arizona, pick them at the end of the week. They're at Arizona. Just pick against Arizona now. So again, all that diatribe to say, I do not. If you still have San Francisco, I strongly believe that should be your survivor pick this week.
Yeah, and I don't have them available. So while that would be my pick, I would probably shy. I have to go elsewhere. My next pick would be Seattle, but I've used them as well. So hey, if Taysom Hill's out, I guess I would feel okay going with Kansas City as my pick this week since they're available to me. But they also have a fair amount of future value when they start to play some of the weaker teams in their division in the league. So you know, if Taysom Hill is playing, I feel less comfortable about this game. And I think I would actually go with the Washington Commanders against Cleveland. Cleveland coming off a really bad loss, still don't have all their talent available to them, and Washington, who's playing really at top value. But I'll tell you right now, Eric, I'd be pretty uncomfortable about it. So if you're in that situation, you decide to go with Chicago instead because Carolina's kind of the dredge of the league, even with Andy Dalton at the helm, or you're comfortable going against LA at home with Green Bay, who now has Jordan Love back, I don't blame you. So I'm in a little bit of a dilemma, almost hoping a little bit, even though he's my guy, that Taysom Hill isn't playing, in which case I would go with Kansas City.
All right. So obviously my pick is the San Francisco 49ers. And I agree with you. If I just am giving advice to people not knowing who they have left, is I would pick Seattle after San Francisco. And then that's where we slightly disagree. I can't pull the trigger, even with Taysom Hill out, to pick Kansas City combination. I don't. I think Kansas City at some point is going to have a letdown and not win one of these close games. And New Orleans scares me even without Hill. So where do I go? I'm going with the Packers, the only road team. LA's not a place that is really scary to play on the road. I mean, the weather, it's not like the weather is really bad. In fact, I think the weather's going to be nice on the West Coast. So I guess those are my options. A very interesting week, Michael, where you have, a lot of people picking San Francisco and Seattle already, and then you're talking about no team that's higher than a 5-point favorite. So can one of these teams that are 5-point favorites less lose? Of course, statistically, there are 5 teams, at least 2 will lose. So here we go again. As always,
it's gonna be an interesting week for fantasy leagues. Those have survived this long. If you have the Niners or the Seattle left, man, you're sitting pretty compared to others. So best of luck to you all.
Yes. All right, Michael, as always, great breaking it down with you. Until we break down week 6 in NFL Survivor, take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
We will put 2 videos up that we think you'll enjoy.